Can't understand? Welcome to our philosophy discussions.
I'm Saman, and
I'm Ashwati, and
our big question today is
what does it mean to live a good life?
it's a very good question. And I don't think there's a definite answer to the question. So, what are your views on this?
Agreed. I think in this we can bring to start off quite simple, we can bring in utilitarianism and deontologism, and we actually did our TOK presentation on that. So in terms of living a good life, because the term good is quite subjective, it would it would be, I would say, like a good life is defined by your actions throughout your life and how valuably good you consider them. But then that goes into what you consider the outcome, if you consider whether the outcome is more valuable or the action itself. What do you think?
To be honest, like it depends on the person. Like, like if you follow a religion, like if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, a good life is different because you like devote your life to following a certain path. And even if that path like gives you pain or gives you something that you can't do, so it's like Muslims they can't do haram stuff. They even if you can't do like what other people might find good,
Mm.
you believe that by taking this pain in the future you will receive something that is much bigger, a reward that is much bigger. So I feel like good life depends more on your beliefs, and it's not really a general thing. You know what I
Agreed,
mean?
because things like, for example, that are considered haram there, like for example, eating pork, no one would consider that a bad action, maybe outside the religion, for example. So I think,
Maybe it's like an enjoyable thing for someone, like, and that makes it good. Maybe someone
yeah,
thinks a good life is like an enjoyable life,
yeah,
like
exactly.
where you do what you want.
Like I think we could compare it to, like, let's say there was a husband and wife, and the wife like makes her husband like a bacon cheeseburger for dinner. The rude thing for him would be to be like, no, I don't want to eat this, like that's rude, like that's not a nice
Hmm.
thing to do, or not, that's not a good thing to do. But if they were Muslim, for example, and they said, yeah, like I'll eat it, that wouldn't be a good thing to do if they follow like that sort of religion.
Yeah, because that is their belief. That's
Agreed.
what they should believe in.
So I think that's quite a
Depends.
clear thing. Sorry, what?
No, it's fine. Keep it.
That's a clear thing where utilitarianism and deontologism comes in, because in that case, if the spouse was Muslim, the action itself would be focused on in terms of being good, and that's deontologism. But if not, for example, the good thing would be to focus on the outcome, which would be making your wife happy, which would be utilitarianism. So I think that's quite an important thing to consider in terms of living a good life.
I think something like if you believe in the afterlife can be a big factor in what you think a good life is. Because if you don't believe in it, if you think so, if you don't believe in it, then you don't care what you do to others. Because what you're doing is like you have 90, 80 years to live, and you're just trying to maximize that. You do what you want to benefit yourself,
That's true.
and this. If you think nothing's gonna come out of it, then that is your good way of life. But
Hmm.
some other people like the afterlife, if it exists, matters because it makes them think about what they're doing, and maybe their good life doesn't like is very moderate for someone like the other person who doesn't believe in the afterlife.
Agreed. And there was another question I saw, which was, how long do you think you'll be remembered in your afterlife? And do you think that necessarily being a good person or doing something good means you'll be remembered longer?
No, no, because I mean Hitler wasn't a good person.
Just a
Everyone knows
perfect
Hitler.
example. That's
Like
true.
there's loads of good people we don't know because we never heard of them, and a lot of good people. Most good people don't flaunt what they've done. Like maybe if they donated like a lot of money to charity, they won't publicly go out and say I gave this much to charity
But bad
because
people wouldn't do the same. They wouldn't be like, I'm a bad person. Like, look at
but
me.
everyone speaks about the bad person.
That's true.
Everyone goes, look at what he did wrong. No one goes, oh look at him, he donated this much to charity because he doesn't speak about it.
Yeah, agreed. Do you think it's always been like that?
Sorry, you're lagging.
Oh, do you think it's always been like that? Do you think people have always focused on the good, the bad instead of the good?
I don't know. I only lived 16, 17 years.
Okay, well, from what I've seen in history, I think people tended to focus on the good previously, because I think the world before was it seemed to be, at least, a much nicer place. But I'd say unusual in whether that.
No.
Yeah, like I would think so. I
No.
mean, it
Um.
depends. Like in terms of people themselves, I feel like we see much worse people nowadays, but I feel like the
No. I feel
principles
like
are a lot more skewed.
we're just a lot more sensitive now. I feel like we take
That's true.
everything. So now everyone just gets offended by everything, even though like I was watching. I think there's a black comedian. He was talking about how if you can't like a white guy can't make a joke about a black guy. But
That's
in the 1990s, if a white comedian made a joke about the black, everyone would laugh in the room, even if they were black people. They would understand that it's a joke. And yeah,
But do you think that
like
sensitivity is bad? Because I think it's good to have that sort of sensitivity that we do now, because certain words I don't think should be used, and they are so much nowadays.
I
And
think now
people,
it's gone. Like it's going too far at one
that's
point.
true.
Like where it's just limited thinking.
Mm,
Just like you have to be careful what comes out of your mouth, like 24/7. Like cancel culture and stuff like that. Like you can't say, like I don't get how what you said in the past shows what you are now. Like your
that's
beliefs can change.
that's true, but then it also depends on how much time has passed since you've said that. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, and it depends on how you judge it. Because before then, like they said it in like 1920s, if they said something racist and you blame them for saying, but that's what they lived and that's what was normal for
that's
them.
true. But
So
then
you
I
can't
yeah, go on.
judge them against now moral standards, like present moral standards,
Yeah, because
because
I think people are a
they
lot
live
more
by them.
educated nowadays against what you'd consider right or wrong to say or
Bad.
to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is good because yes, we may be more sensitive now, and jokes that flew or like were like good then are definitely not okay now. But I think that's good because there were a lot of like sort of transphobic jokes and words that were made or homophobic words that were made and
Yeah,
used.
some obviously, yeah.
Yeah. But then
But a
I
lot of like yeah, go on.
no, go on.
Oh, that's fine.
Go on.
No, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Same.
Nice.
Okay, no, but I do
Um
agree that it is going too far nowadays. I feel like people find excuses just to cancel anyone that they can. And
yeah.
cancel culture is very biased as a whole because I think it targets, not to be misandrous, but I think it targets women a lot worse than it does men in terms of, like Jeffree Star, for example. He's in a privileged position. He's a white male, and he has said very racist things in the past and still does. In fact, so there was this whole thing with Dolls Kill, and basically they put the picture on Instagram of police officers outside one of the stores, and they were like police officers in all their glory, sort of like glorifying the police, even though despite everything that's going on, people are like, that's really insensitive because it's almost not racist, but it's quite an insensitive thing to do considering what's going on right now. And Jeffree Star sent a message to the like head of Dolls Kill and was like, I hope you get shot in the head with a rubber bullet. And that was even more insensitive. Yeah, was even more insensitive considering, again, everything that's going on. And so if maybe he had to kind of go back to the original topic, if he had maybe phrased that better in a sense of like, what you're doing is not okay, that would have been a good thing to do. But to wish injury on someone, especially in such an insensitive way, makes his action so much,
Yeah.
it makes it so much worse, and it makes it an awful action compared to what actually could have been good in terms of, I don't think you should have posted that, can you please take that down, given the amount of influence he has. And so cancel
Is
culture,
Jeffree Star
go on.
a guy?
Yeah,
Because I don't know him. He
he
is a
is.
guy?
He is.
I don't think it's biased. I think if a woman said the N word like 15 years ago versus a guy said it, I think they're both getting cancelled.
Not necessarily.
Even though
Go on.
like, but I think some like places in Canada, I think they realize that if you apologize for your past, and they truly think that you didn't mean it. Like Justin Trudeau did blackface a couple times, I think back in 2001, and I think they understood it because he's the leader of the Liberal Party, and he's the president. I think they realized that he changed, but most people they don't see that over time.
That's
Like people like small actors, like they can't prove their innocence because they are not the leader of a Liberal Party that supports it.
that's true. And I think the platform, like I think a really good example of this, I don't know if it's just because of the platform he has or if that platform is based on his privilege, but Laura Lee, for example, she seems very
How
racially
is he
ambiguous.
privileged? Isn't he trans? Isn't he like?
Who?
queer? Is he like some sort of? Is he just a white male?
Jeffree Star?
Jeffree Star?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is. Just a white male.
A lot of people hate him though because he does makeup and stuff. So I don't think he's really privileged.
A lot of people don't hate him because he does makeup. A lot of people hate him based on the racist past he has. He has said some awful things, and he's phrased a lot of things that, again, could have been good
I
in
don't
terms
think.
of calling people out. He's phrased them in ways that make his action, again, horrible. So what does it mean to me to live a good life in that? If the consequence, for example, is that people stop talking to you or like stop saying these things, but the action itself that you made was awful, I don't think that was a very good thing to do, like in that sort of sense, going back into it.
I don't think. I don't think he didn't get cancelled because he's a white male. Because like, if you think about Jeffree Star, like a lot of people hate him for like what he does, and like conservatives, they'll be like this guy is insane. Like he's acting like a woman, wearing feminine clothes and stuff like that. But he has like a massive audience of like 12-year-olds who like obey him. So I think getting over them like millions of people is a bigger hurdle than getting over like the white privilege he has.
That's true. But like I was saying, I think a really good example of that is Laura Lee, for example, or a lot of other female influence, like female influencers. Can I speak? Like Jaclyn Hill or Laura Lee, or who's that other one? Nikki Tutorials. Nikki Tutorials hasn't really specifically done anything problematic that I can think of right now. But like Laura Lee, for example, and Jaclyn Hill, who have both been quite problematic, were canceled so much worse than Jeffree Star could have ever been, despite Jeffree
It's
having.
because he has a bigger following.
Not necessarily. Jaclyn Hill has a
He
massive.
has a more. I'm pretty sure he has a bigger and a more like, what's it called? Like indulged fan base, like a stronger fan base.
Yeah,
I don't know
Jeffree
if he has
Star.
more subscribers.
I feel like Jeffree Star's fans are almost cult-like in terms of that, and they don't
That's
see
what I'm saying. So you can't.
that in anything
They
he.
don't see the wrong.
That's true. Yeah. But
I don't
anyway,
think cancel culture is bad for women, to be honest. I think it's the same. I think it's equally stupid for both.
I don't think cancel culture affects everyone equally at all. Not necessarily just in terms of men and women, but I think different people, people let different things slide for different people. Like again, it could be because of the following they have, or the way they're seen to the public, or again how recent it is. But I think it should always be if cancel culture is going to work, and it's going to ruin someone's career, it should apply to every single person. Like in the sense of, if you said something
Yeah.
that was like that bad and someone else has the same thing, both should be canceled or both should not be canceled, whatever it is. I think.
I don't think. I think if you cancel culture should exist on current choices, not something you said back 20 years ago that you
Oh
completely
yeah,
disagree with now, because you tweeted something, you tweeted like a homophobic joke because you thought it was funny then, because it was normal
agreed.
then, but someone finds it now, and all of a sudden you're like bad guy. But
Agreed.
I mean, we've all said some stuff that if people find out wouldn't be good, but like we're over that.
Agreed. Yeah,
Like
people
we
grow
don't
up.
believe that stuff anymore.
That's true. But yeah, I think it goes into the whole thing of, I think cancel culture is quite a good example of the difference in what people consider good or bad. I mean, if we're bringing economics into this, in the behavioral economics course, I can see you rolling your eyes. If we bring that into it, we place different value on different things, like things that are closer to us, or things that we see, or things that have an effect like sooner. For example, we place higher value on that. And so again, that appeals more to deontological ethics, where we focus mostly on the outcome and we place higher value, but if it was sooner. So that would lead, for example, this sounds quite abstract, so like a good example would be um, giving to charity or giving to the homeless, where if you like bought food or whatever, the outcome is like immediate, like the action and the outcome. The action would be giving the food, the outcome would be the person being happy. That's very immediate. So more people are likely to do something like that. But what about people, for example, who, I think that's one thing that makes these things seem more valuable, but like giving to like a anonymous charity, for example, where you don't get to see it. I'd say not as many people are willing to do that because again, they don't get to see the good in their action. And so I think seeing the benefits of your action makes them seem good, but I don't think we should place value on that specifically, and I don't think that's what's necessary to live a good life.
Yeah. I think I don't remember who said this, but I think it was Aristotle. I read somewhere that I think he said a good life is like a happy life, which is very like subjective, but I mostly agree with it because everyone's definition of happy is different.
That's true.
Because some people they get happy with money, some people get happy with friendship, relationships. Some people are happy with like what they believe in, like if they follow what they believe and they think they're gonna achieve something, they'll be happy. So I think the whole point of living a life is to be happy.
Okay.
Because no one wants to be depressed.
True, and then we could change that question into, instead of living a good life, because good could mean morally good or it could mean
Yeah.
fulfillingly good, could that be changed into a more, is it, what does it mean to live a fulfilling life, or what does it mean to live a whole life? And Plato actually said, to love is to become whole, or to become whole again. And so, what does love mean necessarily that you're living a good life? No, of course not, because there are so many people that are happy on their own. And so, I think that honestly, like you said, it's a very subjective term in terms of what you consider living a good life and to be self actualized in that.
I think you need a purpose. Even if you're doing stuff that makes you happy,
Mm.
but it doesn't have a like okay, think of this as like if I like just sit on the couch all day, makes me insanely happy with like two friends with a blanket, cold, just watching movies with some loads of popcorn and my PS4 in the other room. If I do that for my whole life, maybe I'm happy because I'm doing happy stuff over and over again. But it's not a good life. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm
Yeah.
not giving anything. I'm not doing anything. I don't have a purpose. I'm just sitting on my couch all day.
Yeah, and if we're focusing on good in terms of not necessarily morally good, but in terms of um, being fulfillingly good, or being fulfilled, sorry. I think one of the good things to link it to would be Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where again, you need purpose in order to self actualize. And so the bottom is
Mm-hmm.
physiological needs in order to be happy. So that obviously goes into your home, your food, water, shelter. Fine. The next is security, which goes into being safe and are you feeling safe, whatever. The third is love and
Friendship,
belonging, I
family.
believe. And that goes into having those sort of relationships, be it actual romantic relationships or family or friends or anything like that. I think you do need that. And then the one after that is esteem needs, which goes in terms of feeling good about yourself. And then the final one is self-actualization. And you can't have self-actualization if you don't have any of the bottom ones. I mean, you can't be self-actualized if you don't have a home, for example. Can you necessarily be self-actualized if you're constantly in fear of, for example, walking on the street and getting shot? No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
And so I think that that would be a pretty good example of what it means to live a fulfilling life.
But
Like you said, a
uh,
purpose.
but personal life. But I'm forgetting this guy's name now. Stoicism. You know stoicism, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's where you just don't care about anything and you just live your life. Like what
yeah.
it is based off. The guy, he did not care. Like he used to live in the street. He's like, and that's what he wanted. He wanted to. He like used to eat off like the road,
Mm.
and people praised him for that. He gained a following for not giving like a single care for anyone. But to him, he probably lived a good life. But he didn't have any relationships with people or friends. He lived off himself. It's just, I mean, it's like that's an example of showing that maybe at one point, if we do come to terms with ourselves, we don't need any fulfillment by others, and that like we're enough for ourselves. I think it's an example of that, but like that could apply to like a small majority of people who could come to terms with themselves.
Agreed, but then would he have considered his life fulfilled? Like, would he have really been able to look back at his life and think, wow, that was a really fulfilling life? If his purpose was to just be in that sort of way and be a stoic person, then
That's what he
okay,
wanted.
sure.
So
But
it could like it be fulfilling because he would fulfill his wants if that's what he wanted.
okay,
He didn't even have any wants. First of all, he just lived.
okay,
If you don't have, if you don't expect anything of anything, and you don't get anything back, you're not gonna think anything of it because you didn't want anything. So by not thinking you're gonna fulfill a life, you fulfill your quest of not fulfilling it because you don't have a purpose, but you still fulfill it because there's nothing to it, and that's what you wanted.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the mindset of the person.
Yeah, true. I mean, because sometimes I guess we're talking about like being a stoic person and if that necessarily is fulfilling. Like, for example, I like to have days where I do nothing and like that's my want for that day. Like today I'm going to sit and do absolutely nothing. But then when I look back at that day, was I necessarily did I find that a fulfilling day? Like yes, it fulfilled everything I wanted to do that day, but would I consider it fulfilling? No, but then that could also be because my other days are not doing nothing. So I think that yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because your aim is to do something. Normally in your life, you want to become something, and every day you want to work, you want to become closer to that something. You didn't have an aim in life. You didn't have to work closer to anything. You know what I mean?
So yeah.
Like, let's say you want to go to uni, and you don't do anything in a day that makes you closer to going to uni. Even though you want to do nothing that day, you're still gonna like not feel fulfilled because you're not closer to a goal. But he never had a goal, so he never had to go anywhere.
But then do you think it's a fulfilling life if you never have a goal? Like what do you fulfill in that life?
Your goal, if you live, you just exist. That's what their
But is
goal
that
is.
fulfilling?
Maybe to him it was. He's
Okay.
not like, why would he do it for 70 plus years if it wasn't fulfilling?
A
Like,
lack of
no
motivation
one
from
else
not
can.
having a goal.
I mean, he could have. He went to school, he dropped out, he left his family, stopped
Okay.
caring about everything. He had opportunities, but he didn't take them. Mindset.
Again, could that be down to a lack of motivation? Because I mean, it's turtles all the
A
way down. Like
70-year lack of motivation? I
constant
don't know.
regression. Like if it's always
Wouldn't he
like
feel bad though?
sorry,
He would feel bad about it.
not
Right?
necessarily because when that becomes your lifestyle, like think of someone in depression, you don't necessarily always notice you're in depression. I mean, I have no idea because I've never obviously been in that state, but you wouldn't necessarily notice. Like I mean, it becomes your lifestyle, but can you really consider that fulfilling if you don't have a goal?
But his goal was no goal.
But then can you
That's the
even
whole, that's the whole point of his life. Is that he wanted nothing with it. He didn't expect anyone to do anything. He didn't expect him to do anything. So he did. That's what he did. I mean, he didn't listen to anybody. He didn't care what you said. I remember he like spat on King Caesar's face when he asked him a question because he didn't care. The guy gave no, like he was insane.
okay. So if you're saying that
I
he
mean,
had no goal and his goal was to do nothing, how does he know when that goal is fulfilled? I mean, I think the thing about having a goal is that you know when it'll be fulfilled or you know how you would measure when it would be fulfilled. Like,
maybe he didn't have a goal. Maybe he just lived it by the moment. Maybe like seeing like if you fix so let's say you have a goal, right? Like if I have a goal to be in the NBA, but you don't have a goal after that. Even if you have a goal, you have keep going goals. You reach a goal, what do you do after? You're empty. You
no,
feel
you,
empty.
you get
Like
another, you make another goal or another ambition.
how far can you keep going? Like okay, let's say you want to get $1 billion. Okay, you get $1 billion, you want to get 3 billion, you get three, you get 10, you get 20, you get 100. What do you do after the 100? You keep adding, it doesn't add anything to you.
It doesn't
You're
necessarily
not
have to be
benefiting
in
from it.
that sort of field. Like, for example, my goal right now is to finish the IB, or like my goal right now is to finish the end of school with all my deadlines going fine. The goal after that is to get ready for the next school year. The goal after that is to get into a good university and finish the IB. The goal after that is to go into a job. The goal after that is have a family. The goal after that is to, I don't know, buy a
See,
house.
like you live in goals, right? You expect to reach a goal, and then you expect happiness from getting that goal, and then
Not
you
necessarily.
work towards the next goal.
But I think that
Why would you do a
fulfillment,
goal if you don't expect happiness
ambition
from
is
the goal?
important because where's your motivation if you don't have anything to work towards?
I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm like,
Okay.
let's say if you have an outrageous goal, but like it's the goal you really want, like like it's outrageous for you, it's outrageous for anyone else here, but to you it's possible. You don't reach it, then it becomes like devastating. But if you never had any expectation and you don't reach it, but you still wanted it, but it wasn't a goal, because you're by making a goal, you're attaching happiness to it. But by finishing, getting in a position, you're not gonna get happiness. Like it always ends. It doesn't. It's not like so. Like if you say live a good life, it's very broad. or you say you want a goal, it's very like subjective. Because you can reach a goal, but then you keep adding goals and you'll never stop. You'll never become happy. You're always reaching for happiness. You're never at the state because you're always looking for it.
Okay, but you could still say that you've lived a fulfilling life. Like I think I've lived a reasonably fulfilling life up to now, given like achievements or anything I've done that I consider fulfilling. But if you have no goal, yes, I guess you wouldn't have to face the disappointment of not having one, of not reaching one, sorry. But can you necessarily say that without ambition you've fulfilled anything? I mean, sure, it might be
Um,
nice to be a very stoic person in the sense of sort of not having in the sense of always having that sort of not calm demeanor but sort of go with the flow demeanor really. Can you
yeah,
really say that's fulfilling? Can you really say that you could say
depends on the
sure
person
then
too.
that you've had a good life, but can you really
Yeah.
say it was fulfilling? And if fulfilling is your definition of good, then
Okay. Yeah. Well, so you're when you get a goal, right? You attach it to like happiness. You're gonna feel good when you reach the goal, right? That's what goals are for. Or you're gonna achieve something that makes you happy. Like if you get into like Oxford, as an example for economics, you're gonna feel happy, right? But but then you're gonna want to top Oxford, and then you want to get the top salary, and then you want to start a family. Like you're always searching for something. Like you're always looking for a treasure, but you find bits in it. But if you keep looking for the bits, you don't find the treasure. You get what I mean? Like you're not looking for happiness, you're looking for happiness in other stuff.
okay, and I see what you're saying, but I would still say that by fulfilling some goals and by, because like at the end of the day, let's say like I fulfilled, let's say like okay, I do good in the IB and I get into Oxford and I get a job, but and I have a family or whatever, but I don't get like for example my next goal being like a my dream house or whatever. I would
Yeah,
still say I had a fulfilling life if I had to die at that very
yeah,
moment.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right. Is it happy life? Is it a good life? Because you've worked so much for so long. Instead of searching for happiness, you've searched for jobs or unis. Spend all that time instead of making connections or instead of focusing on yourself, you focus on the IB and then you focus on uni and then you focus on your job.
Are you a
You never
type?
really get time to focus. No, am I calling you a sweat? No, I'm asking that sometimes it's more important to focus on yourself than everything else. Because if you keep searching for happiness and goals, you'll never achieve it because you'll always have a new one.
That's true. And that goes down into not tying your happiness to other people or to material things or even
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like goals. And that's super important. So, I mean, that comes down to, again, the original question what does it mean to live a good life? That depends what you define a good life as. If you define a good life as fulfilling, I don't think that's a good thing to do because, I mean, what if you don't fulfill your
like
goals? Will you write off
like
the rest of your life as being
that's
bad?
what I'm saying, right? A fulfilling life means you fulfill all your goals, right? You did what you wanted to
Not
do.
all your goals. You fulfilled enough goals to make you feel fulfilled, I guess, or fulfilled
But
enough.
you don't. Okay, so like, when do the goals stop? They keep going, right?
Sure.
So there'll be always like, but when you die, there will always be a goal that you never met. And maybe if you were alive, if you could think when you died, you'd be like, what if I got to that goal? So you'd always think what life would be after. You'd think it would be better, but you never reach that state, so you never get fulfilled. I mean, you can have okay, let's like Amazon, like Jeff Bezos, right? I mean, he has so much money, like, but he keeps wanting more, right? He's fulfilled with money. He needs all his needs, but he's always wanting more. Like it's humans, we just want more, 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 more. But like if you keep adding that to goals, you're never gonna finish. And when you don't finish a goal, you're gonna leave unfulfilled. You're gonna be like, oh, I was so close to that one, I just missed out.
That's true. But then again, it goes down into how much value you put those goals under. Like, I
Yeah,
I would say I put a fair amount of value on my ambitions or whatever I want to do. And when I fulfill that, I feel it's great to fulfill that. But like if
yeah.
I died at this very moment, God forbid, I would still say that I had a good life or I had a fulfilling life, despite maybe not having completed all my goals. But again, that does come down into how much value you've placed. Like if you place
No, okay. let's say you don't die, but like circumstances occur and you can't fulfill your next goal, but you stay alive, right?
Hmm.
Let's say like you can't make it into uni because of some problems, right? Then you feel like your life's been meaningless. All that time you've been waiting up on goals, making new goals, making future goals, all that time is just gone because you've been focusing on that. But there's no point because you can't do it anymore. It's not because you're dead. It's not because of your past life. It's because of near action. So you can't predict what happens to you.
That's true. And then you
Because like
said
you never
different
know what's
goals.
gonna come up. But then you had that, or like, okay, everyone has that one goal they want to achieve, right? The top goal, the thing that everything works up to, right? Like getting, like graduating from uni for most of us right now, or getting like a 40 in the IB, like a 2 year, like kind of long term goal. But let's say you can't do that. Let's say it gets out of you, and then your future plans, like all your goals that you thought about that thought would bring you happiness, like
Mhm.
getting into good uni or not, but they're all gone. So you feel unfulfilled even though you can make new goals. You still have those goals unfulfilled.
Okay. But then, like, let's say, like, for example, person A, like, we'll call him Bob, doesn't get into, like, a good university. But then there are still ways around it. Like, we were talking about this in the group a couple of days ago. Like, what are you going to do if you don't get into a good university? Oh, I will practice, like, computer stuff for, like, a year, and then I will interview at so-and-so, and I will try work at
Like,
so-and-so. So those goals are
but you
good.
don't feel fulfilled though, right?
You would, because in the end, if you if because then you set new goals. Like, okay, it would suck obviously not being able to fulfill one goal that you really wanted to, but then you set completely new ones, and that's okay, and then you get fulfilled by those. But then that's what I'm
Let's
saying. You
say,
shouldn't base your good life on just your
yeah,
goals.
that's what I'm saying. What if you knew you had the potential to be a billionaire, right?
Mm,
You knew you could let that happen if you worked for it, but some unexpected circumstances happen, you can't do that, but you change your goals. But those options don't allow you to become as big as you wanted it to be, as big as you hyped yourself up, as big as you thought you'd be. So
okay.
you become a millionaire, but that's 1,000 times less than a billionaire. So you don't feel fulfilled because you know what you could have done, but something out of your control happens, and it's not even your fault. Therefore, it ruins it and it leaves you unfulfilled because you would know, you knew for a fact you could let that happen if it happened.
But who says necessarily? Like, there are some things that I wanted to achieve, but I didn't end up achieving, and then it was awful for a bit. But now I'm like, that didn't affect my happiness in the long run. I'm still as fulfilled as I would have been if I had achieved that. And so again, it goes really down into what you consider a good life to be. So would you consider a good life a life where you've fulfilled all your goals? Okay, that's one way to think of it. Would you consider a good life one where you've been morally good? Sure, that could be one way of doing it, but then it all comes down to how much value you place on each action you take towards whatever you consider good, be it a fulfilling or a morally good life. And that all comes down under, again, the way you define a good life as a whole and what you would really
Hmm.
consider that to be.
Yeah, I think everyone has different opinions on what a good life is, but I think achieving something is should be a part of it. Like having a purpose should be a massive part of it. Like you think you like doing something repeatedly that gives you a purpose is a massive part of being happy.
Okay.
Having a purpose.
Yeah, and again, that goes under, do you need a purpose to be happy, or do you need that sort of motivation to be happy? Like, I personally know that if I didn't have goals, I'd be a very demotivated person, and then I probably wouldn't
Yeah,
be happy. Like, I think that all comes down under what you
have
personally,
purpose. Yeah, what you think.
yeah, agreed. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning into this episode on what would you consider a good life. We've concluded that it completely depends what you define a good life as. Come on.
Leave your suggestions below. Like what you think, like your answers. Like we'll try and check them out.
Yeah, and we'll reply to you.
Shout the best one out if you guys even comment.
Yeah, please
The three
comment.
of you who are watching this,
Let us know what you think. And if you can, type in your best philosophy joke of the day. I hope you recognize the one in the title.
don't do that.
It's
Don't do that.
good. It's good. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Please comment what you think below, and we will see
Yeah.
you next week.
If you guys have any feedback, down below. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.